Right now, you are the only one left. Not just you personally. Every single human being alive on this planet today belongs to exactly one species, Homo sapiens. But it was not always this way. There was a time, not that long ago in the scale of Earth's history, when at least 6 different human species walked this planet simultaneously. Different faces, different bodies, different minds. All of them human, but none of them us. And then, one by one, they all disappeared. Every single one, except us. So the question that should keep you up at night is this: why did we survive when nobody else did? And the answer is not simply that we were stronger, or smarter, or more violent. The real story is far stranger than that. By the end of this video, you will discover which human species were alive at the same time as us. You will find out what actually happened to them, and you will understand the one thing, just one single thing, that separated us from every other human species that ever existed. And when you understand it, you will never think about what it means to be human the same way again. Let us go back, way back. About 300,000 years ago, Earth looked almost nothing like it does today. The continents were in roughly the same place. But the world was wilder, colder in places, more dangerous everywhere. And it was full of humans. Not as one kind, many kinds. In Europe and Western Asia, the Neanderthals. Stocky, powerful, cold-adapted. They had been there for over 400,000 years before we even appeared. They made tools. They buried their dead. Some evidence suggests they even made art. In the forests of Southeast Asia and the islands of Indonesia, a tiny species called Homo floresiensis, standing barely 1 meter tall. So small and so strange that when scientists first found their bones in 2003, they thought it was a child. It was not. It was a fully grown adult of an entirely separate human species. In Siberia, the Denisovans. We only discovered they existed in 2010 from a single finger bone found in a cave. That is how recently we found out they were even real. And scattered across Africa, us, Homo sapiens, newer than the Neanderthals, smaller than some, not obviously special at first glance. Picture this world for a moment. 6 human species, all breathing, all surviving, all building something, all looking up at the same stars. And then, something changed. Around 70,000 years ago, something remarkable happened inside the human story. Scientists call it the cognitive revolution. And here's what that means in simple terms. Before this point, early Homo sapiens were surviving, but barely. Small groups, limited tools, no real evidence of complex communication or long-range planning. Then something shifted in the way our brains processed information. Not in our anatomy. Our skulls did not change, but in our behavior. Suddenly, the evidence in the archaeological record explodes. Cave art appears. Complex tools appear. Long-distance trade appears. Decorative objects appear. Something woke up inside us. But here's where it gets interesting. The Neanderthals also had big brains. In fact, their brains were slightly larger than ours on average. They also made tools. They also used fire. They also cared for their injured and buried their dead with what looks like ritual. So if it was not just brain size, what was it? What did we have that they did not? The answer, as best as scientists can tell, comes down to one word: language. Not just communication. Every animal communicates. Even Neanderthals almost certainly had some form of vocal communication. But something about the way Homo sapiens developed language was fundamentally different. More flexible, more creative, more unlimited. Think about what language actually does at its most powerful. It does not just describe things that exist. It describes things that do not exist yet. It creates fiction, shared stories, myths, beliefs, invisible structures that exist only in the minds of people who agree to believe in them together. A Neanderthal group of 30 individuals could cooperate. They knew each other personally. They could work together because they had direct experience of each other. But Homo sapiens could do something no other species had ever done. We could tell stories about things nobody had ever seen. Shared gods, shared enemies, shared futures, shared identities. And that meant we could cooperate in groups of hundreds, then thousands, then millions. Think about what that means on a practical level. Imagine 2 groups competing for the same valley. One group has 30 Neanderthals, strong, experienced, each one personally known to the others. The other group has 150 Homo sapiens, connected not just by personal experience, but by a shared story about who they are, where they came from, and what they are fighting for. Who wins that valley? Almost every time, it is the larger coordinated group. Not because any individual Homo sapien was stronger or smarter than any individual Neanderthal, but because we could build larger armies, larger trading networks, larger information sharing systems. Ideas could travel between groups who had never met. Innovations in tools, hunting, medicine, navigation, they spread across our networks like fire. A Neanderthal invention stayed with that group. A Homo sapien invention could reach 1,000 people in a generation. And generation by generation, the gap widened. But wait, this is not the whole story. Because language and cooperation alone do not explain everything. Climate played a devastating role. Around 40,000 years ago, Europe entered a period of severe cold. Ice sheets expanded. Food became scarce. The megafauna that Neanderthals depended on began to disappear. Homo sapiens, with our wider networks, our ability to share survival strategies across thousands of kilometers, our capacity to innovate faster, adapted. The Neanderthals did not adapt fast enough. Their population fragmented, small groups, isolated, cut off from each other. The very thing they lacked, large-scale communication networks, became fatal in a crisis that required rapid collective adaptation. And here is something that might genuinely surprise you. They did not simply die out in a dramatic battle or catastrophe. They faded, slowly, group by group, valley by valley, over thousands of years. The last known Neanderthals survived in isolated pockets in southern Spain and Gibraltar. They held on for perhaps 10,000 years after most of their kind had already disappeared. Imagine that, the last Neanderthals, standing on the coast of Gibraltar, looking out at the sea, completely unaware that they were the final members of a species that had survived for 400,000 years. And somewhere nearby, Homo sapiens were expanding. But here's the part of this story that nobody fully prepared me for when I first learned it. We did not just replace the other human species. We absorbed some of them. DNA analysis in the last decade has revealed something extraordinary. If you're of European or Asian descent, approximately 1 to 4% of your DNA is Neanderthal. Not metaphorically, literally. At some point, in some valley on some night, in some moment of two species meeting, Homo sapiens and Neanderthals had children together. And some of those children survived and had their own children. And so the Neanderthal DNA entered the Homo sapiens lineage, and it is still there. In you, right now. If you have ancestors from East or Southeast Asia, some of your DNA may be Denisovan, a species we only discovered 14 years ago. Think about what that means. The other human species did not simply vanish from history. They became part of us. Some of the specific Neanderthal genes that survived in modern humans relate to immune function, helping us fight diseases in the new environments we were entering. The Neanderthals, who had lived in Europe for hundreds of thousands of years, had already adapted to those environments. Their genes gave us a shortcut. We did not just outlast them. In a strange and beautiful way, they helped us survive. So what does all of this mean for you standing here today? It means you're not simply a Homo sapien. You are the living result of an ancient collision of species, a merger of evolutionary histories, a walking archive of every environment your ancestors ever survived. The next time you feel an instinct you cannot explain, a fear of the dark, a pull toward your group, an ability to feel deeply connected to people you have never met through a story or a song or a flag. That is the cognitive revolution still running inside you. That is the thing that made us the last one standing. And those fragments of Neanderthal or Denisovan DNA sitting quietly in your genome, that is them, still here, still part of the story, just written into you instead of walking beside you. So, why did only one human species survive? Because we learned to believe in things we could not see. We built invisible bridges between strangers. We created shared stories powerful enough to make people who had never met fight and sacrifice and build together. No other human species ever did that at scale, and it changed everything. But here is the bigger thought to sit with. We were not inevitable. There was nothing guaranteed about Homo sapiens being the ones who made it. On a different day, in a different climate, with a slightly different turn in our evolutionary history. It could have been the Neanderthals having this conversation, wondering what happened to us. The fact that it is you sitting here right now, thinking these thoughts, feeling this curiosity, is the result of an unbroken chain of survival stretching back 300,000 years. Every ancestor you have ever had survived long enough to have a child. Every single one, without a single exception. That is not nothing. That is everything. If this made you think differently about what it means to be human, subscribe. We explore these kinds of questions every week. And drop a comment. Which human species do you find most fascinating? I would love to read them.